Ricci and myself are here and we're looking forward to finding out more about the local wildlife on Mull from George and Lara. They live on Mull, being able to take us to the best spots immediately, while at the same time we'll be talking them through the new lenses that we have with us and showing them some of the new features on the Z9 and the cameras in the Z series range. Lara, George, you brought us here to Lunga. We arrived in Mull. First thing you did, put us on a boat, and we're on another island now.
Yep.
Why are we here?
This island is filled with incredible seabirds. We can expect to see puffins, guillemots, razorbills.
Yep.
They had some basking sharks just out here the other day, which of course is not a bird.
Loads of seals too, but yeah, we're mainly here for the birds, especially the Atlantic puffin. So the British Isles have 10% of the global Atlantic puffin population, and we're so lucky to be able to come here and see them up close and personal.
From a fieldcraft perspective, when photographing the wildlife in this sort of environment, any tips?
Patience, picking your spot. Going back to what I was saying, you can get overwhelmed with the amount of choice, so just sitting in one particular area and waiting for the puffins to come to you. With regards to the Harp Rock, which is the massive sea stack covered in guillemots and razorbills, being quite creative with the glisten of the water as well is quite interesting, playing around with bokeh and things.
I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited to start shooting. Kit-wise, we brought all our long lenses, and then you said we don't need long lenses here.
Yep.
But obviously, just in case, this is also the first time you're shooting with the new Z 400 2.8. Yep. First time you're going to be using it as well. So we've got a couple of 400 2.8s, and we've also got 100 to 400. I brought some normal lenses, which people might not necessarily always associate with kind of close-up wildlife stuff, but some 24 to 70s and things like that. So I'm really excited to see the vast variety of shots that we can get in this location.
And we have 8 hours, so let's make it count.
Yes.
Sounds good. Let's go.
This is such an incredible location. When you first come here, there are so many birds flying around and they're all doing different things. It can be quite overwhelming and I never really know where to start. So I think the best thing is to break it down. I like trying to focus on one bird in particular and then seeing what else comes to me. But the best thing about Lunga or a place like this is that the birds are here for a good long while. So you really have time to experiment and get into things and yeah, just have fun with your photography. So I'm shooting with the Z9 and the 100 to 400, which is absolutely amazing. It gives me so much flexibility. I really like experimenting with getting the animal within its environment, so obviously having it at the 100 is perfect for that. But then I also have the option to zoom right into 400 and then I can practice some portraits and things like that. For me, a great photo is always putting that animal front and center. So my background in conservation means I'm always looking for interesting behaviors to photograph. Right now, the puffins are all coming back for their breeding season and they're monogamous, so they pair up with the same bird every single year. So at the moment, there are going to be these amazing interactions between two birds as they come back and they meet their mate again for the summer. So I'm looking for that, like birds like pecking their beaks together and just that greeting between them, which is really lovely.
So this is my first time using the 400 2.8 and I've heard a lot about it. I've been desperate to try it out, and having been to this island many times before, you can get really quite close to the animals, and I would usually use something more like a 24 to 70 or 70 to 200 2.8, but using this 400 I'm trying to play around by compressing scenes, and so far to say I'm impressed is a big understatement, and I really desperately want one now. So my style of wildlife photography has always been kind of like on the fly. I don't like to use monopods and tripods, so the weight distribution of this 400 2.8 with the Z9 is perfect just by using my knee, which for me is great, so it means I can be really flexible and just moving around the scene, checking out different compositions without having to adjust monopods and adjust tripods. It's just perfect.
So Lara, tell us about where we are here.
Well, we're on the gorgeous island of Lunga. It's part of the Treshnish Isles, and it's where loads of seabirds, including our gorgeous Atlantic puffin, come to stay for their breeding season.
Tell me a little bit more about Atlantic puffins. I think they're so cute and they look very, very comical, but tell me a bit of their sort of habitat here and what do they eat?
Yeah, so they actually only come to islands for the breeding season, and they'll only be here for a couple of months to meet their mate again, have a chick, raise it, and then they'll head back out to the ocean for the rest of the year, really. But they're really amazing birds. Whilst they're here, they'll be diving mostly for sand eels and small little fish that they can bring back to their chicks. But not much is actually known about what they do once they leave these islands. They just sort of head out into the Atlantic Ocean and they actually rest on the sea, and they just spend the rest of the months out there. So it's quite an interesting bird, but they've actually just been listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. So we are seeing declines in their populations globally. It's due to a number of different reasons, like declines in fish stocks and things like that. And because of climate change and the warming oceans, we're seeing the fish moving in ways that the puffins maybe don't expect, so the food's not where they think it's going to be, so quite worrying.
So you mentioned there are a couple of species that have been added to the red endangered list. Do you think places like this really help, or do you think they're a hindrance in some cases? Because obviously there's lots of photographers here, and the opportunity to shoot some of these species of bird is like nowhere else that I've ever seen before.
I think on the whole it's a huge help. You've seen on this island today, there's one path, there's little to no destruction of habitat or damage to wildlife. And as you saw on the boat, everyone's got their photography gear. That can only be a positive, because when they're taking photographs of all these amazing animals, they go home, show their friends and their family, post them on social media. And that's another way for people to learn and to open their eyes to these types of places that a lot of people don't even know that exist in the UK, let alone in the world.
You don't want to damage this ecosystem at all, so I think small numbers, and I think it is a great place for people to learn sort of wildlife photography in a really challenging environment. We can really help bring people's skills on here.
So if there was somebody that has never come to a location like this, do you think you have like a couple of tips and things that they should be really mindful of when they do come here?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head there. It's a type of mindfulness when you come here, because as you can see all around you, it's pretty hectic. There are birds flying everywhere, the noise is almost overwhelming. Just to actually sit your camera down and just do a bit of thinking. Like Neil and I were talking earlier about how we can use the bokeh of the chests of the guillemots behind us to kind of throw out the back of the photo. And I think if you're kind of whizzing around trying to get flying puffins and changing lenses, you'd end up spending 4 hours here and not actually coming away with anything. I think better just to sit down and just observe, because there's a lot of patterns in nature, and this place is no different despite the hecticness of the actual place.
And I think the other thing would be is that you can get really close to the birds here, but obviously we don't ever want to stress them out to the point where they're changing their behaviour. So actually maintaining a really respectable distance allows you to be able to see those natural behaviours that you might not get to witness otherwise.
The only thing I can say is just thank you for bringing me here, because it's been amazing. It's been
a pleasure. And you did say on the brink of tears earlier, so I am waiting for the tears still, but won't be so good for trying to look through the viewfinder. But I mean, as I'm talking to you, I'm finding it hard to concentrate, because I'm just seeing guillemots and puffins flying over the back of your head constantly. And no offence, I'm actually just desperate to go and photograph them.
Sure, I think the only thing that we can't guarantee is the weather, because this weather's crazy for where we are.
It's like this every day here, Ricci.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't realise.
It's the UK's best kept secret.
It is it? Right.
So I've just been watching some puffins knocking their beaks together, so I really want to get a close-up interaction shot of that. I've just switched my 100-400 for this 400 2.8, which obviously I'm used to shooting at 400, but being able to shoot in such fast aperture is really game-changing for me, so I'm just experimenting with that.
So I've dropped my lens pretty low here. I'm getting this beautiful washed out effect of this carpet of bluebells all the way up to the shag on the end of the cliff perch there. My first time trying this 400 2.8, so of course I'm shooting at 2.8 because I've been desperate to try it. I'm at ISO 200, shutter speed 4000 because it's so bright, not because there's any movement, but just trying to get an evenly exposed capture. And just at 5 frames per second, there's not any real movement going on here. The only thing that I'm really looking for is for the shag to look directly down the lens, because they've got this reptilian dinosaur kind of look to them, but he or she's not done it yet, but that's the whole point of wildlife photography, just a bit of patience.
So what did you guys think of Lunga?
I thought it was epic. There are so many different bird species here to photograph. The puffins are just brilliant. How close we could get without actually disturbing them, just amazing.
Yeah, there's not much more I can add to that really. It's just a really great location, and I'm kind of keen to see what shots I've got on the back of the camera. So it's been all around a really good day, I think.
Okay, but tough question. Best thing you saw today? Best encounter?
I think for me, it was, because one of the things I really like to do with wildlife is try and choose one subject, just follow that subject for a little while and just see some of their characteristics. So we've got a really nice sequence of shots of just a puffin just running along the grass, which I think always brings out their character. So for me, that worked really well.
For me, I think puffin in flight coming straight at me. I've got a really good sequence on here, but there were so many different things to photograph here. Difficult to pick one. That's a tough question.
Lara?
I think for me, I was photographing a puffin and it had some beautiful pink sea thrift in front of it, and then also some yellow lichen, and those colours were all faded in bokeh, and it was, yeah, really beautiful.
The best thing for me has been experiencing with you, Neil, and you as well, Ricci. Like Lara and I keep saying, it's so nice hearing you both say how blown away you are by the island. It's amazing for us to be able to share it with you, to be honest.
It's fantastic you guys to bring us here. It really has been an epic day, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what we've got in line tomorrow. Taking us to this lock. We've seen an otter. It's my first time photographing a wild otter on location. I've got a lot to learn about this, so I'm going to pick up a conversation with Lara and George about teaching me how to actually get the best settings, the behaviours and the fieldcraft to photograph wild otters. Looking forward to tracking it further down the lock here, and hopefully we'll have some more amazing encounters.
So we're just on the shores of Loch Spalvey and we've seen an otter. So what we're trying to do is get a bit further ahead of it so that we can let it approach us, and hopefully it'll swim right past where we're sat. But we're being really careful. We're only moving when it's dived under the water so it can't see us. We're being really quiet, and yeah, hopefully it will come kind of close. Some good practices to be respectful for the otters is just to never put any pressure on them. Ideally, we don't want to affect their behaviour in any way, so we don't want them to really know that we're here. But of course, they're apex predators, so they're going to know that you're there, but then it's about giving them the opportunity to control the encounter, so you never want to get too close. You always want to move when they're under the water, just so that you're not obsessing them. When they're swimming, they're obviously fishing, so it's really important that they're getting all the food that they need. So yeah, the main thing is just not to disturb them. As a general rule, stay further back than you think you should. So the Isle of Mull has always had a really, really good otter population. It's been one of the strongholds, especially given that the UK experienced massive otter population declines between the 1970s and the 1990s. But Mull's always remained a stronghold. I don't think anyone actually knows how many there are here, but Mull's got 300 miles of coastline, and it's that coastline which means it can support one of the highest densities of otter populations in the UK.
So we've got an otter coming in right shore. It's just coming up now. This is amazing how close they're getting. Got a Z9 here, 800mm, 1600 a second. Auto ISO, it's fairly flat. So it's actually giving me about ISO 1100. my f6.3s on wide open on this lens. It's just behind a rock there. That's amazing. Just going under the seaweed. This is a terrific thing to see. But it's amazing, amazing guiding by George here to bring us to this location. He said there'd be otters here. There are otters here. So we've just arrived here, guys, and we got straight into tracking and photographing an otter. That was amazing. Thank you so much for bringing us here. How typical is that sort of otter encounter?
Well, I think seeing them is pretty common here if you know what to look for. There are a surprising number of people who don't ever see an otter when they come up here, maybe just because they don't quite know what signs to look out for. But yeah, it was an amazing encounter. He swam right past us on multiple occasions, so we made sure we got really far ahead of him. So that he was approaching us without really knowing we were there, which is great. And then, of course, right at the end, we saw him actually go back up the stream, back to his halt for the day. So that was really special, and that is something that you don't often see.
That was amazing watching him go up the stream there and by the waterfall as well. Got a very picturesque home there. That was just terrific. George, what would you suggest for encounters like that with otters as for setting up the camera?
Well, it does depend on the situation, of course, but in encounters like that where we're waiting for the otter to come to us, on a longer lens, like I think you've got the 800 6.3 there and I'm using the 400 2.8, I like to have what I call my insurance aperture of at least 7.1, because on a longer lens, when an otter is that close to you, the distance between the nose and the eyes is quite pronounced, and you don't want a sharp nose and blurry eyes or the other way around. Your shutter speed and your ISO does depend on where it is. We were talking just now after the encounter about how the light changes so quickly. Something like ISO auto and then just adjusting your shutter speed depending on what the otter is doing is a really good way to go about it. You can have a slower shutter speed if it's just kind of moving quite slowly, but the second it darts straight back into the water, just dial your shutter speed up and your ISO will follow.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, I think the creativity side of things starts to come through if you do want a slightly different shutter speed or a slightly different aperture, but you always have to be aware of what part of the animal you want to be in focus, because like you say, there's so many times where the eyes might be perfectly sharp, especially with eye tracking, and all of a sudden the nose isn't quite sharp. So you always have to be aware of that. But yeah, I think I've been varying my settings to try and get different shots. So I think all of us are shooting slightly differently, which is great because we all get different shots, which is always cool.
Yep.
That's fantastic. We've got the rest of the day. Shall we head off to the next location?
Let's.
Fantastic. Let's go, guys. So guys, it's been a fantastic time here in Mull. I know when I used to go out photographing, or when I had my photography business, I used to work with my wife, we used to go out on shoots together, and some of those occasions were really special. We could share moments and things like that. How is it going out in locations like this for you guys?
I think it's exactly that. I think it's sharing the moment with someone who understands how amazing it is or how rare an encounter was. The example I always give is that both of us have probably lived in Africa between us for about 2 years, and we had never seen a caracal until our first trip to Africa together. And when we saw one, it was just incredible to be with someone who knew exactly how special it was. And yeah, I think it's just that shared experience.
Well, there's that famous quote, which is happiness is only real when shared, and I think that both of us getting to travel and to be on Mull here together is really something very special I never take for granted.
The other thing I find really interesting is that we could both be at the same encounter, both with our cameras out, and yet we'll come out with completely different shots, because obviously with photography we all see the world completely differently. And I love that I can look at George's photos and see something that I didn't even think of, and it really inspires me. So. And
I think the same could be said for our backgrounds too, that before working as a wildlife photographer, I was working in advertising. Lara has always been a scientist, so we come at it with just totally different approaches, and as Lara was saying, it leads into that point that we could be out here photographing an eagle or an otter, but come away with completely different photos, and to then be able to dissect that together afterwards is really fun.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, because when my wife and myself, we were shooting, we have completely different skill sets, and she's brilliant at doing some other sort of close-up portraits and things like that. I do more wide-angle stuff. I think that's my landscape background coming on. I can really relate to that, sort of having that different view of the same scene. That's what I love about photography as well. It's just really unique like that.
And all the disagreements as well about
What disagreement?
There are lots of those, yes.
What's good and what's bad.
Yeah. Who's got the best picture on the day?
Especially
Yeah.
when it becomes to the positioning of the vehicle, or how we're going to approach something, or we're trying to get out of it. But you know, you've got to have the good comes with the bad sometimes
I
too.
think just friendly disagreements.
Friendly disagreements. That's what we'll call them.
Yeah, creative differences.
There you go.
There you go.
Welcome to Lockshore Hyde. We wanted to bring you guys here because it's a great place to try and spot those golden eagles and white-tailed eagles, and of course many other species of bird. So first of all, what do you think? And second of all, it sounds like you had a bit of luck before we arrived.
It's a stunning location here. We've already seen a number of different birds. It was a really good suggestion to come here. We've already photographed and seen a golden eagle, photographed a buzzard as well. Great shout on sort of bringing us down here. It's been really fantastic, hasn't it, Ricci?
Yeah, no, it's just a great experience. It's a very tranquil, quiet place. There's lots of stuff going on because it's not just those bigger birds that are flying overhead. There's loads of little smaller birds that are moving around you as well. So there's definitely loads to shoot here.
The best part for us is 5 minutes up the road from our house. So we've been talking about wildlife on your doorstep. We come here a lot with our dog. He sits in here very, very silently, and we just admire the wildlife flying around. We've seen otters down in the loch below us before as well. Quite far away, but still really fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I'm so jealous that you guys saw a golden eagle just before we arrived. But yeah, I really hope we get to see a white-tailed eagle. They're so impressive. And really it's a big conservation success story because they were once declared extinct in the British Isles, and thanks to reintroduction programs, they've made their home here. And I think Mull now has 19 breeding pairs.
It's the bastion of white-tailed eagles in the UK. And in fact, they've even taken some youngsters from Mull and reintroduced them to the Isle of Wight in the south of England.
Wow.
So we've now got Scottish birds in England. They were originally Norwegian birds that become Scottish that are now English birds. Yesterday the weather forecast said that today was going to be pouring rain. You can see it's quite different at sunshine, which is very classic for Mull. So I think we should get comfortable and wait for the wildlife to come to us.
So guys, it's been a fantastic few days in Mull. So excited about what we've seen. Otters, eagles, birds of prey, puffins, which are brilliant.
A few
puffins.
Seals as well.
Seals, we've seen seals. So it's just been, and the landscapes here, looking at this sort of scenery is just terrific. Thank you so much for guiding us around here. It's been terrific. I think we've had some really good highlights. Ricci?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the puffins on that island were insane. I'd never expected I thought we were going to get some good shots of puffins, but the availability of those pictures was fantastic. And then to kind of cap that off with the following day for the otters was fantastic as well. So
thank you both for coming. We've loved having you here. Mull's put on a show for you. I think today as well you've had every type of weather, which is a typical day for us here at Mull. And I've loved testing out the new 800 and the 400 as well.
And it's just been so great learning more about the Z9 from you both. And personally, it's just lovely to see you both so enthusiastic about the wildlife sightings that we've had. The wildlife is one of the main reasons we moved here, so it's just so lovely to share it with you.
It's been really special to be here. Nikon School will definitely be back. We've got lots of landscape workshops to run here. I think we can run some wildlife workshops as well. It's just an amazing place. Great to catch up with you guys, because I'm sure we won't see any of the otters or eagles or anything like that without you and your special knowledge about Mull and the insider sort of places we can actually go to. It's been so fantastic, and we'll definitely see you when we come back.
Just been so lovely to have you here, and yeah, you're welcome back anytime, but we've got a couple of hours of daylight left, so
and it's not raining, so we should probably go.
Yeah.
let's go. We need to take the opportunity.
Let's take some
Let's
photos.
go this way.